Zelensky has gotten pretty good at this, pretty good at managing Trump. And he got all of his allies, our allies, the European allies, to get on the phone with Trump and say, we need a ceasefire. It has to be a ceasefire. Before we do anything here, a ceasefire. So Trump says, okay, ceasefire, I can get a ceasefire. Who doesn't want a ceasefire? But also, he realized that this is going to be, quite a bit of negotiating here, a bit of detail work, which he doesn't like. So he brought in Rubio and Witkoff to this meeting, where originally he wanted just him and Putin. There is this idea still in Trump's mind that he is the best negotiator who has ever walked the earth.
The art of the deal.
When in reality, he is probably the worst. But, it's the worst because he doesn't prepare, he doesn't, negotiation is all details, and he doesn't do details. At any rate, he goes into this, and they go into this meeting, and they say, Vladimir, can we get a ceasefire here? What will it take? And Vladimir says no.
The other person on top of Zelensky who's become good at managing Trump is, of course, Vladimir Putin.
Very much. And he said, it then became, it has been clear. Should not come as a shock, and it is not new. He certainly does not want a ceasefire, and he does not want an end to the war, really, unless he gets everything unless he gets Ukraine, basically. And from there they don't move, and this is the meeting is cut short, by the way, but anyway, at this point Trump is fucked, and he is not going to come out of this being able to claim any kind of deal. The whole idea of Trump negotiating with Putin, negotiating with Putin is really like negotiating with death.
Well, can we talk? David Rothkopf talked on this podcast last week about how skilled Putin's KGB skills are at negotiating, manipulating. And you saw the bit where Putin said to Donald Trump, this war wouldn't have started if you'd been in power then, which was the one thing that Trump seemed to take away from it. So can we discuss it from, if you're MAGA and you're watching this, is there anything here that's working for you? Because as a television episode, it seemed devoid of tension.
Yeah, no, I think from MAGA can take, I suppose, be hopeful about this, which is that clearly Trump is not defending Ukraine. Clearly he has gone back to, I love Vladimir, I'll do whatever the Russians want. This is, and he's going to, he really has no alternative. He's left with two possibilities here, which is either shove something very difficult to eat down Zelensky's throat, or basically walk away from this and distance himself in the U.S. and let Russia have its way. So I mean, from the MAGA point of view, well, that's certainly better than realigning with Zelensky and going after Russia.
So what was your interpretation of the theatrics of the event, of the red carpet, of the fly past where they both men had to look up, ostensibly a display of American might? Well,
I don't know. My sense is, I found the contrast today between the New York Times coverage and the Washington Post coverage really interesting, because the New York Times concentrated all on, their coverage was about the choreography of this, the orchestration of this. That was their lead. Whereas the Washington Post lead was Trump got fucked. We got nothing out of this. This is really a loss for Trump and potentially a loss for Ukraine. So in that respect, the choreography really worked because the New York Times took the bait on it. But and perhaps that was part of this. Let's disguise the fact that substance might not happen here, and substance didn't happen, or didn't happen for what Trump wanted. I mean, substance happened for Putin. Putin got really everything that he wanted.
Right, but the choreography is also interesting in terms of what it inadvertently or unwittingly reveals about Donald Trump, right, when he's in charge of the choreography. And one couldn't help thinking he looked older. There was the strange weave across the red carpet when they sat down together. We wrote in the Daily Beast that his cankles, his swollen ankles, which actually must be quite painful. I mean, they were almost spilling over his loafers, and compared to Putin's neat little ankles, we did a comparison shot. I thought that Trump looked old. There was also twice last week he'd said he was going to Russia. On the plane there, when he sat down with Bret Baier of Fox News, he said, well, if I don't get anything from it, and I am a deal guy, I'll come back to the United States. And you were like, these are senior moments happening in front of us as they happened with Joe Biden.
No, and I think you could see a certain self-satisfaction on Putin's part. And Putin looked, I hesitate to say the guy looks good, because he looks like an agent of death.
He's got no color. He's got a completely gray face.
But he looked like he was certainly in command and right where he wanted to be, and all going his way.
Well, which reminds me of you quoting Steve Bannon, A, on this podcast, but B, in one of your books, maybe The Siege, about the Helsinki conference, where, tell us the story of your watching it with Steve Bannon.
Steve and I had gone to Europe together. This was back when we were speaking, which we can get into some other time. And we were both watching the press conference after Helsinki, and that was the meeting where Trump and Putin were alone together. And then they came out, and Bannon is watching this, and he says, "Oh my God, Trump looks like a beaten dog," and then went on to speculate about all of the things that Putin might have on Trump, which is still, behind all of this, there is the Trump-Russia, Trump-Putin mystery. What is this about? I mean, why would Trump always be so eager to ingratiate himself with death?
If you're Donald Trump, let us for a moment borrow from our other podcast and go deep inside his head. What is he, do you think, thinking as he's sitting down opposite Vladimir Putin at the beginning of the actual sort of discussion?
We don't really know this. We know that he is drawn, unlike virtually everyone else in the free world, as we used to call it, to Vladimir Putin. Why? Bannon would speculate that that Putin has something on him, Bannon at one point, sort of enumerated all of the things that Putin might have on him, but then went on to talk about Putin's enormous, not only Putin's personal enormous wealth, but the enormous wealth of so many others that he controlled. Therefore, you could not be, as Bannon described Trump, a money grubber on international levels without crossing paths with Putin or Putin's money or Putin's capital at so many various points. So, I think that there is that, that that feeling is always with Trump, that he is somehow connected to Putin in a way that, to say the least, is not transparent.